Good morning. Oh, it's raining in Baltimore. Good morning, Gigi. Counting crows is my absolute favorite. He's my other boyfriend. I'm not happy with his haircut though. That's a joke. I am Tina Swithin. Welcome to Divorcing a Narcissist. This is Coffee with Tina, where we come together every week to discuss the narcissist and co-parenting and all things family court. Whether you were married to this person or not, we've gotcha. I'm not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice. This is very much a survivor group of collective wisdom. So welcome. Hello, Laura. Hello, Jenny. I really wish when this actually posts to YouTube that you can see the comments from the live, because apparently you can't. And I wonder if there's a way to fix that. Yeah, so a couple of things. We now have, good morning from Ontario, Canada, 7 states: Illinois, Idaho, Texas, Maryland, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. We have some huge cities: San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta, Denver. It is truly amazing what has come to be through Family Court Awareness Month. And with that comes an apology, because if you're waiting for an email from me and it's something urgent, feel free to nudge me again. You have full permission. I am barely keeping up. Good morning, Renee from Bakersfield. I just did a Bakersfield news interview. It's been, I truly have no idea, this has been so powerful, what has come from our awareness campaign and the media interest on it. I just did an interview with Blaise Gomez out of New York yesterday. We had a national news story that went out this week, myself and Danielle Pollock. Amazing stuff is happening. It's for these things to finally shift and for us to put this on the map. It's going to take media attention. And so it's happening, and it's happening in a really big way. And I am just so grateful. And, a lot of the media, when I'm talking to them offline, they're saying, oh my gosh, my sister went through this. We didn't know this was a thing. We didn't know this had a label. We thought this was an isolated incident. And it's easier to believe that it is, because if you open your eyes to the reality that, this is happening all over the country, all over the world. This is a worldwide, I'm calling it a crisis. It's an absolute crisis. And a couple of months ago, Custody Piece and I did an interview with some media, or a scouting type of interview call. And they said, this is the next Me Too movement. And it very much is. We are literally putting it on the map. So how can we help you with things? You know what? You guys have already done. It's truly amazing. If you have accepted a proclamation and I haven't posted it on the website, if I haven't shared your video, and you are open to us sharing it on social media, send it over to me and we will get that. I will tell you the most powerful thing. One of the most powerful things for me that has come from this is watching people accept the proclamations. And some people feel open enough to be able to share a little bit about their story. And you can tell for the first time that for many of them, it is the first time they've ever talked about this publicly, and to be openly supported and surrounded by community members and elected officials who are thanking them for their bravery. I cannot tell you how many times I've cried through this whole process. It's so incredibly powerful. So last night we shared we've been collecting voice clips, and we're using the hashtag #MyFamilyCourtStory. We're going to be doing a several part series, hearing from people on the battlefield, clips, 45 seconds or less, of a powerful moment in your case, or just a recap of your story. And I know it's hard to get it into 45 seconds. I am very aware how difficult that is. And if you want examples, we just published the first one last night. So if you go to familycourtawarenessmonth.com and click on the blog. It's the very first blog that we just posted. And listen, it's about 20 minutes in length, because it's kind of the intro to this series, and then a bunch of clips from survivors sharing how they have been affected or failed by the family court system. I'll give you some trigger warnings. Some of it's going to be pretty intense. And but I'm one thing I've always said is I know what it feels like to be in the system and to not feel like you have a voice. And domestic violence and the isolation, spoke on the wheel, all of that, that continues on through this. And my platform has been developed very organically over the years and has grown and taken a life of its own. My platform belongs to everybody, and I will always use my platform to give other people a voice who feel like they don't have one, because it's so healing for people to be heard. And so whether you listen to it or submit your own voice clip, you can submit a voice clip, just do it on your phone, like a voice record memo, and you can send it to admin, ADMIN, at onemomsbattle.com, and we'll collect those and keep making additional stories. So, and share them. If you're someone who is able to share things openly on social media, any of the media stories, please comment on them, please like them. The media watches these things. They watch the numbers, the traction, the stats, and when they see interest in any of these stories, they're going to continue running more of them. And so for us to be sharing the news articles, you don't have to speak about your case, but if you are able, or maybe you are not able to share openly on social media, and that is a concern, send it to your friends and family members. And all they have to do is say, you know what, I know people who are personally affected by this, and I'm an ally. So we need to get these messages out there and spread them far and wide. Also go to familycourtawarenessmonth.com and click on the events. I'm posting things in there on a regular basis. Like right after our live today, I'm actually driving up to Sacramento. The mayor of West Sacramento, Martha Guerrero, has been an amazing ally in all of this. We reached out to her about a proclamation, and not only did she agree immediately to do a proclamation, she recognizes what a huge problem this is, and she happens to know a mother whose daughters were murdered as a result of a family court failure. And so she has now brought this mom into the ceremony to issue a proclamation. We're doing a tree planting ceremony on Saturday for this mom's daughters. And if you are anywhere near the West Sacramento area and you want to join me, feel free to send me an email at tina@familycourtawarenessmonth.com and put in the subject line Sacramento so it stands out to me, because I'm, as I said, I've got a lot of emails and I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by it. So I will keep an eye out for those. So that brings me to today's questions. Oh, and somebody had sent me a message about the coach training program. It starts January 10th. If you are interested in that, I believe we have 7 spots remaining. And that's the High Conflict Divorce Coach Certification Program. And you can send me an email about that if you have questions. So our first question, and we're only doing 2 today because I had a lot to talk about and I'm going to be driving 5 hours up to Sacramento. But how can you protect your kids from the emotional, oh no, that was last time. So sorry. How do you protect yourself and your mental health when the high conflict parent badmouths you to the children? This, we can open it up in a variety of directions. And it's a pervasive issue that we're all dealing with when we're co-parenting with a toxic person. For myself personally, I had to keep bringing myself back to center. Because, when we're talking about the mental health, we know that this person's entire goal is to, feed the kids candy until midnight. If you are somebody who, is health conscious, I remember, because I am very health conscious, my kids have never grown up eating fast food. And I did grow up eating fast food, but for me, I've just made the choice in my family that my kids weren't going to do that. And no judgment. We have gone to fast food over the years on road trips, things like that. But just in general, my ex-husband knew that was the way to push my buttons. So right before he would bring the kids, they would go through McDonald's drive-thru so that they were so excited about the little toys as, they climbed back into my car. And it's all of those little things where you just look at these people and go, I cannot imagine putting that much of my mental energy into hurting other people. Like I still, all these years later, I am perplexed by this. I cannot grasp it. And I think when you are able to fully, get in that mindset, you've become so callous to it. It's just a whole nother story. I will never not be perplexed by this type of person's behavior and how their entire mission in life can be focused on hurting us and using the children as pawns, whether it's bad mouthing, whether it's trying to turn them away from against us, whether it's causing chaos in the schedule, keeping them up late at night, then they're exhausted the next day. I mean, these children are literally pawns. If we put all of our mental energy into worrying about what they're doing, I mean, there's a lot of cleanup that has to take place. You get the kids back, they're usually a mess for a couple of days. It's that 48-hour decompress. In a lot of situations, you're almost having to send them back right after you finally get them reacclimated and centered and back to baseline. I've lived it. My heart is with anybody who's experiencing this right now. For me personally, it was so important to keep when my kids were gone, when I had 5 minutes alone, refill my tank with positivity, with, anything that kept me, so I wasn't running on empty. Because we have to show up and put the noise and the chaos that these people create out of our mind and be fully present for our kids and be who we authentically are as a parent without letting that other person and their behavior and toxicity seep in. And that's easier said than done when you constantly find yourself in that disaster cleanup mode, but I do think it's important to just put all of that aside, compartmentalize it wherever you can, and just show up and be present for our kids to the best of our ability. I love hearing other people, input. Again, this is very much collective wisdom. If you have tips, if you have tools, it's radical acceptance that this person is going to do everything in their power to affect my happy, to affect my livelihood, to affect my life, my everything. And so it becomes, for me, radical acceptance so that their behavior doesn't completely shock me and derail me. It's almost like I expect it, managing my expectations. If I am expecting healthy behavior out of this other person, I'm setting myself up for failure and disappointment time and time again. So it's the radical acceptance, it's managing my expectations, and it's keeping my tank, even if it's on an eighth of a tank, as long as you're not sputtering. And if you are sputtering and you're running out of fuel, it's time to press, reset and figure out, how do I make it a priority to fill my tank? That for somebody, that could be yoga. For another person, that could be going for a run. It could be having a virtual cup of coffee with a close friend, or somebody who fills your bucket. I still talk in terms of the bucket book. Find people who fill your bucket. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the bucket books are fantastic books. For when your kids are being affected and they're little, helping them to recognize unhealthy behavior. That's again, a lot of this falls onto our plate. And when our plates are already so full, it doesn't have to be a project. The bucket book, it's Have You Filled Your Bucket Today, Carol McLeod. And it's talking about people who are helpful and positive and kind and loving, and that they fill our buckets. And then there are people who are called bucket dippers, who take from our bucket with greed. They're not kind. They lie. They're, and so, and if your kids are older, it's using everyday examples to point out toxic behaviors. Maybe when you're watching a teeny bopper show on the TV with your preteen or whatever, and pointing out, that's a red flag for me. When somebody, when their words and actions don't line up, that's a red flag for me, and using this terminology. And, oh gosh, when she said that to him, that sounded very toxic, that my intuition perked up and said, wait, what was that? So using all these conversations so that our kids are empowered to see what's happening over the years. Never, ever pointing at the unhealthy parent, just in general, because our kids are going out into this world and there's a lot of toxicity, whether it's their unhealthy parent or, their 11th grade teacher. And that's been a lot of lessons that I've learned over the years with my own kids. And now, they come home and they tell me stories about their teachers. My daughters, call out, he said this, and that was a red flag. And, we have to teach our kids so that they can be equipped. Who cares? The courts are a joke, but your kids, yeah. Trying to read the comments and do this. But if you have additional input, feel free to share it in the comments, because I will never claim to have all of the answers on these things. I get this question a lot. In my first book, I wish I would have gone into more detail on it. What did I use to track my kids? I'll tell you, it's not something I can recommend, because I do see these things backfire on people. In our situation, my daughters had a little flip phone. It was through a company that's now out of business. It was called Kajit. It was back in 2012. Now I feel like all cell phones are trackable. But back then they just had a little flip phone. It was court approved that they had a phone in their possession. But it did have a tracking component on it, which was very unique back then. I just saw a comment online the other day. Gigi says this is a good one. Be prepared for your kids to call you out too. Absolutely. They're going to be like, yeah, Mom, you just crossed my boundary. It's like, no, clean your room. So, the phone, I was tracking my kids. I had legitimate concerns. It wasn't just me trying to micromanage or helicopter parent or infringe on his parenting time. His family, and for those of you who follow, I saw a comment about erasing family. That sounds very alienation focused on that documentary. I think I know which one you're talking about, and I personally don't recommend it. I think it's very much in the validating that alienation is a thing where, and the players involved in that documentary concern me. They're very much in the cottage industry of professionals who are making a lot of money off of that industry. I do believe kids are used and turned against healthy parents, but I personally stay away from a lot of those things. Back to the Khajiit thing, though, my ex's family, I've been validated. For those of you who follow my story, I've been validated in ways that no healthy parent ever wants to be validated. My ex-husband's brother, who I was most concerned about, is now serving almost 300 years in prison with no chance of parole for the most horrendous child sex crimes that you could ever imagine. And back then, we had court orders at various times that my kids could not be around this person. Over the years, the courts failed and allowed more and more access to the point where they were living in this home. But back when there were restrictions put in place, I was concerned about proving where he was taking my kids and that they would be in this monster's home. And so could it have backfired on me? Absolutely. But when we were in court and the judge actually said, you're saying the kids were here. He is saying the kids were here. He had painted this huge elaborate story while under oath that day in court. And the judge said, I don't know who to believe. Does anybody have GPS to show? And I was like, actually, I do. And I wasn't fully prepared to admit it that day, but thank God I had printed out the entire stack of their whereabouts from the tracking program. And I had play-by-play where they were every single hour of a 3-day period. And that's the point where he lost all overnight visits forever. And I do believe that's truly what ended up protecting my kids' big picture with his brother in that entire situation. But, in my personal story, it worked out very well. I do see these things really hurt families. And, I saw a comment online the other day on this topic, and a mom said, just sew in one of those little tracker tabs into their backpack. I have seen moms virtually almost lose custody over things like that. Be very careful. I personally wouldn't recommend it, because there's just talk to your attorney. It would be my advice. Let's see. What about when every single expert sees that he's lying, but the judge doesn't care? I don't know how long you've been in it, Alex, because if you're asking that question and you're in it 1 year, I'm going to tell you it's an ultra marathon. If you're 5 years in, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. But then if you're saying we're 5 years in and the experts are showing, then I would want my attorney to build a huge case about his credibility. And that in a situation that's he said, she said, or they said, or, whatever that is, that credibility is paramount. And that if we have somebody, and that's where I saw it over 2 years, So I call it the family court grace period, where for the first 2 years, the courts are giving everybody the benefit of the doubt to the point where you walk in with a whole slate full of lies. They're going to erase it and they're going to say, go on, try again. Good job for trying. They get 5 gold stars just for having a pulse. You start getting to that 2-year mark, and that grace period is, in my opinion, going to be different depending on who the judge is. Some judges have a shorter grace period, others, maybe 3 years. But, when they start going, why are these people still here? And what's the problem? And then, attacking the credibility, then that can be, it's my judge at a certain point in our case, probably 3-4 years in, would actually start proceedings by saying, Mr. Seth has, lost all credibility in my courtroom. I want to go on record and say that. And I would just be like, oh my God, those are the points where my she said started having a lot more weight. Moving into year 4 for me, the judge would actually say, Ms. Swithin, what are your thoughts on this? And I was self-represented, so I didn't have an attorney speaking for me. I was given more of a platform as time went on, and as I was able to show who I was as a co-parent, as a person, as a parent, and then who he was. It takes some time. In our courts are so overwhelmed and overburdened by deadbeat parents that when I joke about a parent with a pulse is a great parent, that's truly the mentality of the court, because they want to see both people involved. They're going by a lot of the research that says 2 parents are better than 1. No matter what, we have to train them otherwise. That is the goal. 2 parents are not always better than 1. All right, everyone, I am heading up to Sacramento for the weekend. And if you are up in that area, again, please feel free to send me an email. And the mayor is inviting elected officials. I've seen judges invited to this, and things are happening. And I'm really excited about the awareness that we're creating. Make sure you go to www.familycourtawarenessmonth.com. Check out our events, check out the blog, check out all of the amazing things that we are doing and get involved. And take our press release from the press room section and blast it out to all of your local media. And you can even find some of the clips of the news stories that have been done in the recent weeks. Send that to them so they see we are a thing, we are credible, we have traction. So, all right, everyone, take care.